Now this here is our lawnmower house, and it is accordingly named because there's a bunch of lawnmowers in it. We've got our big ride-on, this one works, and then we've got 3 semi-functioning small mowers, because if you're not a hoarder, what are you? And there were traditionally, and always was, 2 doors here, and I actually disassembled those, but I lost all of the footage. So I've disassembled the doors, now I need to make the new ones. And I've got the timber in here. These are the pieces from the old doors. The reason I've kept it is because it's only rotten for the last 20 centimetres or so, where it was sitting on the ground and the whole frame was just bent and falling apart. So I'm going to use the old timber, but of course if I'm chopping some off there's not going to be enough. So I'm going to use this timber as well, and because it's thinner I'm going to do a nice cool pattern thingy that'll look really cool, because it's cool and original and new. Now, the primary disadvantage of using reclaimed or reusing timber is the fact that you're going to get broken bits, you're going to get weird edges, and you're going to get nails and screws. So before this timber is usable, I need to make it square and straight and everything. Same with all those bits. This, for example, is one of the pieces I'm dealing with. It has got one kind of straight edge, one not straight edge, and a bagazillion nails, along with a jagged end. So I need to remove all the nails, rip 2 straight ends, and then I'm not going to cut them to the length or plane them, yes. So the post for this side, much like that one, was completely rotten, and so I made a new one. It's all painted and dimensioned and cut and everything, so we just need to bolt it into the wall. But the first thing is, there's the old nails here, so they just need to go shop shop. Big bolt. So I've measured up, and my opening is pretty square for a very old opening, and so I've got my door here, and these are decorative but also useful for stuff, and then the dash buoys are in behind for cross-lateral support strength buoys. So I've come into the wood store here, and as always there's just the piece you're looking for, and even better, I've got 2 of the pieces I'm looking for, which will act as my top and my bottom. Came down to the big pile to find some bits after a bit of digging. 1, 2, there we go. Definitely the length I need. The problem is I'll have to plug this one because there's a hole in it. So if you refer back to my drawing here, we've got pretty much most of the parts. So for the main top and bottom supports, that's these 2 big chunky bits here. Then for the inner bits, there's how many are in that drawing? 4. We've got these, and these 2 will join together to form one wide bit, which is this, and then the other strips are these strips. So that's that. So then I need to find some other chunky bits for my diagonals, and then some other bits from my top and bottom cover pieces. And I've got one of them here, but I need to find another piece that's the right length. Besides that, we can kind of do a drawing assembly here on this lovely tidy bench. So there we have it. It's a bit low, but there's a better view. This is the planned kind of structure for the door, and it is partially aesthetic, but mostly very functional. Like everything in build, it's very functional and a bit of aesthetic flair. So how it works, got 2 main bits because you need some kind of structure to the door. So we've got our 2 main bits. Now the problem is, if you stick the main bit right at the bottom, then as well as the bottom boards rotting like this is going to rot. So you always have to move it up a wee bit. So something is going to rot because you need something touching the ground, but you don't want the bottom bits because then the moisture gets sucked up, which is the problem with the old door. So the boards are going to end short of the bottom, and then we're going to have this sacrificial piece sitting on the bottom, just like that there, and then that means this will rot, and then when the time comes you can just replace this instead of the whole door, because that's what happened before. As you can see, these are the old bits and they've rotted. So this way I can reuse the old bits, chop off the rot and still use them. However, some boards are very bad, and that's where these come in. So these are extra boards and these fit in between two and over a gap, and that allows me to use less boards in a width fashion while using these, and it also gives it a bit of nice aesthetic flair. So that all fits nicely, and there's really not much to it. I've just got a lot of chopping to size to do, and then I can build it. And because it's just one giant panel, it makes everything so much easier than having to make two doors and then trying to get them to line up properly. Just one door, one opening. So everything is cut to length and ripped to width and everything. So we've got our bottom boards, our top board, and underneath here we've got our two main bits. I'll just do the diagonal bits to fit once the whole thing's made. And now, there's the tricky bit. I have to try and figure out the exact mass of how each section of board, how close together they should be. Actually, wasn't too bad. Mass was pretty easy. And as you can see, the spacer that I need to fit in there needs to be 47 millimeters. Well, 47.428, but due to wood being not that accurate, 47 is a good enough number. Look, it's a rainbow. The reason I'm outside is because a series of unfortunate events in which I chopped up a piece I really was not supposed to use as a spacer means I'm a piece short. I gotta go get some from the pile of death and destruction. I've gotten pretty lucky actually. Pile of death and destruction here, and I found a piece I'm looking for. It is the right length, it is the right thickness, and I think it's the right width. Should be alright, we'll find out. And we're back. So stripped her all down and ready to start. Got her clamped in, and I've even done myself some measurements just to make sure got everything right. So this is sitting 5 centimeters from the top, and that'll give me an even measurement right along the top, because all of these have a good top, and I can't measure the bottom because they're all different lengths because they're rotten. So instead then, if these are both fixed together at a constant width, I can push this one against this one with a constant width of 115. So I've got everything measured and marked. Well, not really marked, just measured with my big stick. You can see it's just sitting flush there, and did the measuring tape thingy and that all fits. So let's get this first one in. As with any hoarder, I've got a large selection of nails. So these are the ideal ones I'd like to use. They've got a good pan head on them, they're the right length, bing bang boom, easy. Only problem is I think I've only got a few left, so I'll probably run out. So my other option is I have these ones. Now I don't know what these actually are for, but they've got a massive head on them, so I think they would be very good, but I don't know, just the big head confuses me. They feel like they're specialist nails. And then I've got these ring shanked ones, which are good because they're ring shanked, so they'll be very difficult to wiggle out and pull out. Only problem is they've got a small head, so I don't know, I have to try and figure out what I'm going to use. So I've gone with these ring shanked ones just because the head mightn't be that big, but I realised it actually doesn't really matter because the ring shanked along the shank with rings. The rings actually hold it in along the whole length. It's not just the head doing the holding. I know it isn't normally just the head, but big head is an advantage. But in this case, it should be fine, despite the fact I'll be putting loads of nails in. It'll hold well. Now, in order to keep everything perfectly square, I've jumped to the other end, tied down a piece, and I'm ready to nail her in. And that'll just keep the top and bottom at a constant width, so as I work along, it doesn't taper in. And because of my perfectly immaculate measuring, this should work completely fine and there won't be any problems. Now, before you go any further, it's important to check that the whole thing is actually square and not a parallelogram. So I measured corner to corner, corner to corner, and it was pretty good. It was only off by ½ an inch. So just give her a wee tap, squared her up, and now she's 89 3/4 square. Now that we've got all the primary boards on, I want to do the top and the bottom. First we'll do the top and fix it in place, and then once we have it fixed, we can then measure to see where the bottom needs to go. I've got the bottommost board in the correct position, both width and lengthways, and I just dropped what I needed. I can't use the ring shank nails because they're slightly too long, so instead I'm going to use the big fat panhead ones, which are just slightly shorter, and I'll do the job. So the bottom and the top are now correctly attached and everything's starting to look good. And the last thing I have to do really is put on the straight bits up and down and cover these gaps. But before I do that, I actually want to add this here chunk, which is going to be a diagonal brace. Because at the moment, if I flip it over and add the brace, I can see exactly where it is and then I can nail along it. So I've got a second pair of hands and flip the whole thing over, and using this bit, and this bit, I'll give me a whole pile of cross diagonal bracing, which will be good for this way, but mostly for like kind of racking, because the bottom is not attached to the top, kind of like floppy and bends. Like if I lift this one corner, you can see the whole thing kind of bends a wee bit, so bracing will just stop all that. Now I don't know what it is, but for some reason anytime I cut diagonals I always get them wrong. Just angle, no matter what, it's always wrong. Even doing the mark twice, cut once sort of thing, it's just always wrong. So even after a wee bit of tweaking, I've just about got it right. And this bit's a bit short in that it doesn't do the full diagonal, but that's alright because I've got these other two bits which are going to support the rest, so that's fine. Now I just need to nail them in, and because I'm doing it at an awkward angle and the wood's not that thick, I'm going to pre-drill. Also just makes it a wee bit easier. That's good, thank you. Whew. So now just need to add the nails then along the bracing bits, and then once we do that we can do the strips. Now before I go adding the strips on, the ones in the end actually have a little bit of an issue that needs solving. So this is my strip here, and as I set it on, you can see there's not a lot of coverage of the nail, and so it's going to want to do that, and I don't want it to do that. So if I cut down a strip that's the same thickness as these boards, then it can sit in just like that, and then when I put this board on, it will be supported and not rock. Easy peasy. Now the thing is built, but before I actually stick these down, I realised I'm going to have to sand the whole thing before I paint it, so it's best to sand it before I stick these down, because then I've got a nice flatter surface and I'm not trying to work up as many edges. Here we are, I'm in my ventilating painting booth. The door is ajar, so that will give me some ventilation. I've got all my Boss, can't remember the type of cow they are. Boss Taurus is the Indian ones, I think, with the flappy ears and the loose skin, but tons of them making noise, they'll keep me happy. And even better, I've got my infinite paint. This paint's been used for like 10 years. It's oil paint, so there's a good skin on it here, which I'm trying to break. Without stabbing myself. And the size of this door, I might finally actually finish the can. So if anybody knows where you can get Spencer Coatings in Northern Ireland, hit up the comments and I can actually go buy some more. And I've actually got up to a good speed, and it's mostly because I've just realised tipping out the can makes it 500 times quicker. Ooh, it's just so thick, it takes a minute. Come on. Where is it? Oh, there it is. It is coming. There we go. And it's just all done. And I am all done. I'm actually covered in paint, which is very annoying because it's my favourite boiler suit. But she's all done, and I don't know what it is, but I think it's just because the darker tone of the colour, you can't actually really see the reveals that much. Could just be because it's like dark or something in here, but also the paint is a lot darker compared to the last door I did. Somewhere there'd be like a wee card, and it's the 4-panel Edwardian style, and I did like the reveal pumps and panels and stuff on it, and it's the same sort of thing, but you could see the panel like a lot more emphatically, like there was more emphasis on them. So now I just need to wait like a week for this to dry. Yes, a week. This paint is so thick, it's like literal oil, that it just takes forever to dry, which means only one coat and it lasts like 5-10 years, so definitely worth it. So you can probably tell time has passed because the door is installed. It was very difficult. So I'm just going to skip that and do a whole separate video, because it was very, very hard to install this door, because I made it too big because the doorway wasn't square, and then I did trim it, and then the way I mounted it actually wasn't that easy, so I had to figure out. But anyway, that'll be a whole nother video, and it'll be there when it comes out. But thank you for watching this one. So you've seen how to make your own, and probably don't do it. I really wouldn't do it. Probably just because the doorway was really not square, caused me hassle. But it looks good though, right?